Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're tearing down a script that, let's be honest, we've pretty much all been handed since childhood. It's this deeply ingrained idea that if you just put your head down, sweat, and work as hard as humanly possible, success is just going to automatically follow. But what if that script is fundamentally flawed? What if that blind, grinding work ethic is actually the exact chain keeping you stuck exactly where you are? Well, let's unpack this and uncover the truth together. So let's dive right into a really tough central paradox. It's a hard pill to swallow, but think about it. If physical labor was the absolute, undeniable key to wealth, then miners, farmers, and day laborers would be the wealthiest people on the planet. I mean, the person standing outside at dawn waiting for daily wage labor is usually the most physically exhausted by sunset, yet they often carry the most anxiety and have the least amount of food on the table. So clearly, this simple equation of just working hard is missing a massive, absolutely crucial variable. There's this incredibly powerful analogy from the source material that really hits the nail on the head. It says, you are like the bull in the oil press. You travel a great distance, but reach nowhere. You see, society has basically conditioned us to worship mindless labor. We're told to just sweat it out and leave the rest up to fate or luck. But the reality is, by doing that, society has quietly stripped away our intellect and our strategy. You end up doing the exact same routine day after day, year after year. You're putting in all the miles, but really, only your age changes. Your knees ache a bit more, but your actual position in life, it stays exactly the same. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1, the illusion of hard work, 2, the 3 traps of poverty, 3, our dual relationship with wealth, 4, this concept of beggar consciousness, and finally, 5, awakening the mind. Let's kick things off with section 1, the illusion of hard work, muscle versus mind. When we look back at history, it paints a pretty stark contrast. Think about the great emperors and builders, like the pharaohs who commissioned the pyramids. They definitely weren't out there carrying the 2-ton limestone bricks themselves, right? The people who actually carried the bricks ended up exhausted, their hands bled, and unfortunately, they were largely forgotten. It was the ones directing the vision who built the empires and became immortalized. The takeaway here isn't that hard work is bad. It's about whether there's intellect, vision, and a clear-cut strategy driving that work. It's about using your mind to direct your labor, rather than letting the physical labor bypass your brain completely. Moving right along to section 2, the 3 traps of poverty, or what we can call the roots of the rat race. So there are 3 specific forces that essentially hijack all of our hard work. First up is fear. Let's be real, most people aren't jumping out of bed because they're driven by some grand, inspiring vision. They're pushed out of bed by the fear of hunger, the crushing weight of debt, or just the pure terror of what society might say about them. Second is the crowd. And third is habit. Now, work that is driven purely by fear, sure, it might put a meal on the table today, but it's never going to give you a roadmap for tomorrow. It literally turns you into a servant of your circumstances, rather than the master of your own destiny. Now, let's zoom in on that second trap for a second. Crowd mentality. Seeking comfort by just doing what everyone else is doing means you never actually pause to ask yourself, wait, what are my unique skills? What am I actually best suited for? Instead, we rush to wherever the crowd is going because, well, it feels safe. But here's the catch. Following the herd pretty much guarantees you'll always be last in line. It's like arriving at the market when the sale is already over. The best goods are gone, all the profits have been scooped up, and you're just left standing there blaming bad luck. When in reality, it was your lack of independent strategy that failed you. Which brings us to section 3, the dual relationship with wealth, and that exhausting internal conflict so many of us deal with. A lot of us are caught in this crazy psychological tug of war. On one hand, we desperately need money, right? For our kids' education, for healthcare, and honestly, just for basic dignity so we aren't struggling in our old age. But at the exact same time, society has heavily conditioned us to kind of hate wealth. We whisper that rich people are corrupt, that big money means somebody got cheated along the way, and that money itself is just evil. So think about it. You're simultaneously praying for money at night, but actively condemning it during the day. How can your mind wholeheartedly pursue something that you secretly deep down believe is a sin? You just can't. Here's the reality check we all need. Wealth is just a force. It is completely 100% neutral. It's exactly like fire. Fire can cook your dinner and keep your family warm, or it can burn your entire house to the ground. It depends entirely on how you use it. We absolutely have to stop making wealth into this god that we pray to or some demon that we fear. Once you can view it neutrally, just as a tool that simply amplifies whoever you already are, you instantly remove all that massive psychological friction that's been holding you back. Let's get into section 4, true poverty, which is defined here as beggar consciousness. Because true poverty is in the mind, not just the pocketbook. All right, time for a little honest self-diagnosis. Which of these mindsets dictates how you react to things every day? A beggar consciousness always looks for what's missing. Even if you hand them a beautiful opportunity, they're going to complain about some minor inconvenience because they're operating from this place of deep fear and insecurity. On the flip side, a rich consciousness, and this applies even if someone barely has 2 nickels to rub together right now, operates from trust and vision. They find opportunities in literally everything. They don't see failures as permanent stop signs, they see them as valuable data. Ultimately, true poverty happens when your mind is constantly operating from a place of scarcity. And this mindset, it goes ridiculously deep. Beggar consciousness infects absolutely everything it touches, even spirituality. It turns temples and places of worship into these zones of cheap transaction. It's like, hey, I will offer exactly this much if you give me that much in return. It reduces our relationship with the entire world and even the divine to a hungry, fear-based transaction. And when your brain is stuck in that state, let me tell you, no amount of zeros in your bank account is ever going to make you feel truly wealthy.
Finally, Section 5, Awakening the Mind and Actually Breaking this Cycle.
So, how do we fix this? The source material offers a completely new framework to break the cycle, with 4 really practical steps. Step 1, just pause for 5 to 10 minutes every single day before you dive into the daily chaos. Step 2, ask yourself about the tasks in front of you. Is this driven by fear or is it driven by freedom? Step 3, you've got to learn to say no. And step 4, start treating failure like fertilizer. Seriously, just taking a 5-minute pause daily to evaluate your actions can stop you from selling your energy to blind habits. It can completely change your trajectory. Let's pause on that third step for a second, because the word no is an absolute game changer. A poor mindset says yes to absolutely everything, mostly out of fear. Fear of being left out, fear of making someone mad, or fear of losing some tiny perceived scrap of security. But an awakened mind, it knows exactly when to say no. Saying no to exploitation or mindless, dead-end tasks isn't some luxury reserved for the elite. It's a strictly required boundary for anyone trying to shift into a rich consciousness. You literally have to protect your time if you want to build your vision. And then there's this gem. An awakened mind turns failure into fertilizer, not trash. Look, when you're operating with a poverty mindset, a failure feels like someone stamped worthless right on your forehead. It tells you not to even try again. But highly successful people, they absolutely do not avoid mistakes. They take their failures, pick them apart, analyze them, and use that knowledge to fertilize their next big move. They use the mistake to sharpen their strategy, not to brand themselves as failures. So what is the core, underlying philosophical shift we're talking about today? It's this. True wealth begins the exact day you take your responsibility back from the government, from society, and from fate. As long as you're sitting there blaming the system, the economy, bad luck, or the alignment of the stars, you are choosing to remain powerless. You're just waiting for some external force to swoop in and save you. You have to stop relying on excuses and become the total, unapologetic owner of your intellect and your choices. The second you do that, you transform from a pawn in somebody else's game into the architect of your own life. Which wraps up our explainer for today. But before you go, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question to deeply think about. Look at your life right now. The very next action you take, the very next decision you make today, is it going to be made out of fear or out of freedom? Take a second, really evaluate your underlying motivations, and realize that how you answer this question is going to dictate your reality. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.